everybody, it's Gypsy, and welcome to On the Edge of Appalachia. So, I've been thinking about this question, and I have because of my own personal financial situation, and then also I have some health issues that, um, you know, make me have to kind of do things different when it comes to the gardening. And so it makes me think about this. Also, a comment I had on one of my videos from someone who lives in New York City and doesn't have, well, really anywhere to garden. So all these things I've been thinking of. And you guys know how I feel about gardening, growing your own food, even having houseplants. I think it's really important to be able to grow things, especially grow your own food. However, and I am one of the fanatics, I am. Sometimes I think those of us who are fanatical um, can kind of make it so people who are in certain situations where, say, they don't have the room or health or whatever, to be disheartened and just, not grow anything at all. And, although, all right, say this one viewer who lives in New York City doesn't have much space. Well, she doesn't have space, I guess. Um, doesn't have anywhere to grow anything. Now, that would make me give up. But I hear of so many people who live in like little tiny apartments growing things. And I saw this one, I think it was a picture or something, that somebody who lives in like a studio apartment in their kitchen window had this little setup with this little tiny greenhouse and herbs and maybe even a few vegetables growing in there. It was amazing. Now, I don't know how to do that stuff, but I told this person, don't give up. I said, although you can't grow a lot, growing something is better than growing nothing. I said, I don't know how to do this, but I think if you do a search on YouTube, you'll find a lot of people who know how to grow things in your situation. Okay, so that being said, um, I don't know what my dog is doing. I'm afraid to turn around. Oh, he has this little, I don't know if you guys can see. Look at him. He has this one area. He digs a hole, and it has to be pretty big because he's one damn big dog, so that he can lay in it and take naps and stuff. And a lot of times he'll come outside and he'll find like 5 chickens sitting in his bed there. I call it his bed. But one time, this is funny. I'm sorry to interrupt my discussion, but he just made me think of this. One day, the two of us, me and my dog Sirius, walk out the door, and I see my cat Persephone is in his bed doing her business, and she's covering it up. I swear, the look on his face, it was like, oh, come on. It was like his face fell, and this attitude he had, it was hysterical. But anyways, back on topic. So anyways, it makes me, think of with the trend these days for gardening, growing your own food and all being organic, and you want no chemicals. God knows we all do the best we can because unfortunately our soil is a mess now. It's polluted. And so we do have to focus on that. But with the fanaticism, are we turning off some people from growing their own food, even if it's small? I do wonder that because I'm trying to think how to explain this. There are times when I'm doing videos, when I'm doing my gardening videos, I am always worried about what I'm showing because I don't always have the ability to do it like a lot of people do. Well, the two things, like I said, financially and physically, because I took a very bad fall when I was 58 years old, and I had to have emergency surgery, tore up my leg. The doctor had to glue my tibia back together, and then I had a crack on the tibia plateau, so he had to put, I have a lot of metal in my leg, let's put it that way. The swelling never went down, and this was like 2.5 years ago. And I also have arthritis in both knees and my left hip. So it's like I'm not that bad off, but enough that I do have to be careful. So this does hinder me in many ways. And so I will get very self-conscious when I'm doing videos because I'm thinking, okay, I don't have the money to buy all this fancy compost. I don't have the money to buy all these fancy raised beds. I don't have the strength or the money to build fancy fences, do this, that, or the other thing. I just don't. And when it comes to preparing the soil, I have to do tiny sections at a time because of my physical disabilities. I mean, when I'm outside of the house, I've got my cane. Okay, so I realize that what I see in other people's gardens, I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna have that. I could, because I do have a wonderful son and daughter-in-law who would help me when they have the time. But like I said, they're truckers and they have many other things that they do. My son was born not letting grass grow under his feet. Let me tell you, those two are amazing. But they help me. There's no way I would have been able to grow corn if my daughter-in-law, my son, and his dad didn't till that soil for me. There's no way that would have happened. Okay, so I always have to, certain things I would have to wait on other people, which is not always doable because, it's like, well, first of all, the gardening's my thing. I'm like, I love to garden. Not everybody's always available, okay? And I'm not complaining because everybody has their own things to do too. I'm definitely not complaining. I'm being realistic. So when they're available, yes, they do. They're amazing, amazing, amazing. I don't have that resource all the time to help. So most of the time, I'm doing it by myself. So it's harder for me to do this. I have to, again, when I'm preparing soil, when I'm planting, when I'm weeding, when I am doing anything, it has to be small sections, a little bit at a time, and I have to take a lot of breaks. And if it's hot, like starting tomorrow, we're going to be in the 90s, I don't get much done. So when I am doing a video and I'm showing everybody my gardens, it's like I feel almost embarrassed, okay? And sometimes it makes me feel like maybe I should give up gardening. Maybe I should give up, doing gardening videos because I am so embarrassed. However, I don't think so, because here's the question I'm asking. I realize that we have to do these, we have to amend our soil. We have to, do all this stuff because of the pollutants that are in it now. I get that. But sometimes it's not always something we can do. I mean, like this month alone, and I use all organic. I do not put no chemicals. I had to spend a good deal of money on pesticides, on fungicide, the weed cloth, landscaping cloth, the pins, all that stuff. So that's hard for me because I'm on a fixed income. Obviously, I'm on disability. So it's very hard for me, okay, to afford that stuff. So there are times, because as you know, with gardening, time is of the essence. Mother Nature's not going to sit and wait for my leg to feel good or me to have the energy or whatever. Okay, things are going to go their natural course. So sometimes I just have to do it. any way I can. Now, I'm not really complaining because, I'm making it work. What I'm concerned about are people who do want to get in to growing their own food. And maybe they're in a situation like mine. Hearing you have to get these raised beds, or you have to buy this soil and buy this amendment and put this in and do this and do that. Now I have started my own compost. Now, that takes a while, but I'm doing that. So what I'm saying is there are economical ways to do it yourself, make it yourself, whatever. But there are a lot of things that are expensive. So I'm wondering, are we, by being so fanatical about all this stuff that you have to have this, you have to do that, and I am fanatical about the organics, and I don't really want to touch that one because of, well, what I just said about the soil and everything. But when we get too fanatical, we start turning people off who want to get started, but are seeing it as impossible to do. So I question that. Now, here's the thing with me, and I never wanted to tell anyone this, especially not on my channel, but I don't always amend my soil properly. It depends on how I'm feeling, with my leg. It's a lot of joints to have arthritis in my hip. It's been since the day I was born. I started with my hip, suffering from bursitis at the age of 12. And now it has arthritis. And then on the same leg, it's the leg I banged up when I broke, and both knees have arthritis. So it's like I get frustrated, and I know I keep not staying on one sentence. I don't always get out my trowel or whatever and, turn that soil and mix everything in all together, and I don't, because I can't always do that. Now, there are times that I do. When I can do it, I do it. But a lot of times, if I'm sowing seed, or I'm putting in seedlings or whatever, or any plant, if I am not in a condition to go the full, I'm going to say basically, just stick that thing in the ground. Okay? Now here's the weird part, and maybe it's not so weird. I rarely ever have a plant not do well. I don't. Now, this makes me consider, well, could it be of where I live? Because look what's behind me. I am surrounded by woods. It's forest. Goes all the way around. Okay, it's all over the county I live in. Where I live, when this area was settled, this was the last part of the county to be settled, because this land here was not considered desirable because the woods are so thick. We have a lot of trees in this area of the county. So nobody, the settlers, their first thought is they need to build their houses, build their barns, plant their fields. So all those trees would have needed to be cleared. And they didn't want to deal with that. And that's probably a lot thinner than when, this county was first settled. So this was the last area. So I've got all these trees and everything surrounding me. A forest naturally composts itself. So it's like the soil is already composted here. And a lot of times, if I am on the section of the yard where there's no trees, and I see that soil's not looking all that great, I will go over to the woods and gather up soil, and I'll sift it, get everything, get roots, rocks, and it takes a while, and I sift it until it's gorgeous, and then I use it in the garden. So that's the way I cut corners, but sometimes just to put it in, it grows fine. And could it be because of that? That could be. So in that way, there are others who are not as fortunate as I am to live with this. I'm getting, how do we garden and keep it organic without putting these heavy burdens on people who are new to gardening or can't afford it, don't have the health to do it? I mean, like me, when I'm gardening, now here's my problem with weeding. I don't kneel down on the ground. I cannot kneel. One thing I'm afraid of, I won't be able to get back up because my left knee's so bad. And my doctor, he goes, never, ever, ever kneel. And if you do, you better make sure you have knee pads. So I'm terrified to kneel in the garden. If I get down there, I don't know what will happen. And I'm afraid the hardware in my leg will get ruined. I mean, I'm just, I'm terrified. That was one of the traumatic things in my life was that fall. So when I'm weeding, I'm bent over at the waist all the time. It gets tiring. So this another reason I have trouble keeping up with the weeds. So I've gotten to the point with that also. Well, I'm going to continue to weed because I have to, and I'm having a big problem with crabgrass this year. I just can only do the best I can. I can't keep up. It's nearly impossible with that crabgrass. Now, I do have some ideas I've been thinking about for next year that I'm going to do over the winter or after the growing season's over to take care of that situation. I was not expecting this hot mess this year. I wasn't. But what I'm saying is, all right, like me with the organic, I am very fanatical. But, okay, I can't afford all the fancy stuff. If I'm being too fanatical, or I hate to say it, about the organic, God, this hurts me, I might be dissuading somebody from growing their own food. And I kind of feel like you have to start somewhere. You do. And I think once we get people started growing their own food, God, I'm sorry, regardless how, just helping them get started by not being so fanatical. And I'm doing it right now just by my reaction. We wouldn't have people who would be embarrassed to reach out and ask questions or, do a channel and say, okay, I'm just starting out. I don't know what I'm doing, which is how my channel started. I mean, I do when I don't know how to garden. I guess I've been gardening all my life, but I'm started at a much larger scale over the last few years. So my channel is, I'm typically asking questions. So we don't want to prevent people from doing this. We certainly don't want to prevent people from growing their own food and becoming self-sufficient. I think that's so important. So I'm thinking, all right, how do we do this? How do we encourage people who may not have the means? Because I know it's hard for me. Now, the one difference about me, when I was younger, like say, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I never would have done this. My me being self-conscious about me, one, not having the money to do this stuff the right way, or the health to keep up, would have prevented me from doing it because I was not only very shy, I also cared too much about what people think. There are two things that have changed with me. One is aging, and two is the loss of my older son. When those two things happen, well, I had no more F's to give. So I don't really care what people think anymore, so I'm more open about it. So yeah, I show my garden, even the parts that don't look good. If I have a need that I have to show it, I want to show it for whatever reason. But for someone else, and in my younger years, this would have discouraged me. And I don't think. I think we should use social media as a community to help each other. But that means we have to go easier on ourselves and each other, if that makes sense. We have to be more, I'm going to say, like, accepting of who another person is. So, okay, a lot of people I see gardening have money. And they're buying all this fancy soil and all this fancy this, that, and the I can't do fancy raised beds that you would think somebody in my condition would be using a raised bed. I have two issues with that. The first one is yes, money. The second is I can't grow things, especially vegetables, in a pot to save my life. I tried in huge, that somebody give me huge pots, and I can't do it. I do it in the ground just great. I don't know why. I know what's up with that. Oh yeah, the community thing. We should be using it as a community thing. Just, okay, all right, this person doesn't have money like I do and I can afford this stuff. Maybe I can give them advice in another manner without making them feel bad for not having money. Maybe this person is nothing like me and sees the world differently, believes things differently than I do. That doesn't matter. Okay, this person has a disability. That doesn't matter. We gotta help each other without that. So, anyways, so I can stick things in the ground. Now I do, I will, like, when I'm putting it in the ground, I will put in like some calcium maybe, or some fertilizer, and then I'll stick the seed in the ground. I'll put the plant in there, and I water it in, and I take care of it. And it always flourishes. I mean, I cannot believe what happened this year. I cannot believe my garden is successful right now. It's beginning to look like a forest with all my tomatoes and peppers doing so good. I did something wrong when I started my seeds indoors this winter. Well, they got, long and spindly, but not only that, something happened that never happened before. They turned purple, my tomatoes. I'd never had that happen before. They looked horrible. So did my peppers. And I thought, well, these things are going to die. I don't have any tomatoes or peppers. And I got so frustrated. I said, you know what? I'm just going to stick them in the ground and see what happens. And I did that. I'm not going to walk all the way back there now to show you guys, but if you look at other videos, I'm like, I don't know what they're doing great. So it's like, all right, there's something I discovered from a mistake I made, and with my financial situation and my disabilities, it's like, okay, I did what the only thing I could do that I had to do, and I stuck those little seedlings, as pathetic as they were, in the ground in like late May, even in June. I think I put some in July too. And I discovered you have seedlings that don't get rid of them. Seedlings that look like that, just experiment. Put them in the ground. See what happens. Mine grew. They're producing tomatoes as we speak, and peppers. Stuff like that. So it's like, how do we not discourage one another? Like I've had people see my garden and say, well, I think you should do this, that, or the other. And they don't realize that there are these reasons why I have not done it that way. It's like, okay, I'm aware. A lot of times, people give me great advice that I'm not aware of, and I'll do it if I can, and it works out great. But I'm saying, when somebody tells me something I already know, but for whatever reason I could not do it that way, I'm just going to forge ahead. And, it's like, I guess, mostly financially, if you cannot afford all this stuff, well, maybe we should just, like, okay, put down your pride and give it a go the best you can. Just do what you can. Stick that seed in the ground. Plant that plant. See what happens. It might work out. And if it doesn't, well, try something else. But, you can't let those hindrances stop you. Because I feel strong about this. Growing your own food is so important. I do. And when I think about our ancestors, they didn't have all this fancy stuff. However, they didn't have polluted soil and air and, I'm sorry, weird stripes in the sky. I never as a child saw those weird stripes in the sky. They did not exist back in the 70s. They did not. I know about the 80s because I was so busy being a mother and working that I didn't have time to look up. Unfortunately, it's sad. You have, all right, now I'm just going with the disabilities, the obstacles that I'm aware of because my own. I am sure there is much more out there. All right, for instance, the viewer who lives in New York City. There are other obstacles in that keep people, hold people back from doing this. And I'm like, no, we got to stop saying it has to be. You have to, you have to, you have to. Okay? And I was always like that, like very, rigid about this stuff. But you don't have to. If you can't, think of something else that might work. Or just go ahead and do it with what you got. Because I think it's too important. And, it's like, I guess I feel that growing your own food in polluted, bad soil is a step above buying it at the grocery store. I do. Or if you have farms around you nearby, you could buy from them. I do that sometimes too. I need something I haven't grown here. I buy my meat like that too a lot. I don't always because I can't always. But I do it as much as I can. So, I don't know. I guess this is more, I intended it to be more of a confession. Like, yeah, I don't. Oh, I don't. Most of the time I don't. When I can, I do. But I can't always. And yet, somehow my garden works out. And the only thing, I hear people say it won't work, and it does. So the only thing I could think of is this gorgeous woods, these gorgeous trees. But I don't know. If there's anybody out there who is not surrounded by woods and does what I do out of necessity, just stick it in the ground. Because let's face it, I mean, I'm planting something, I'm bent over at the waist. It's not easy. I'm maybe 61 in what? How many months? 3 months. A little over 3 months. So it's like, yeah, that position is like, boy, things change quickly. But this is the only way I can garden. So, I don't know. I guess it's, I just want to tell you guys, I don't, and it's gotten to the point, I have to be more lenient with myself, not care so much about, if I could just get this grown. And that's, I guess that's all. I'm doing the best I can with what I have. And I think when you see somebody in a video who doesn't do things the way you do, there could be a good reason for it. Maybe they don't know better. And you could politely tell them, well, this is how I do it because of this reason. That's fine. But there could be a reason like disability, money, time, space, whatever. But me, I have to do everything on the cheap too. Because if I didn't, the big garden I have back there, well, it would be either really tiny or non-existent. Yeah. So I think, maybe the hard, fast rules we need to let go of a little bit. And I'm still gonna watch, like I always watch My Gardener and stuff like that. And other people. Ooh, Millennial Gardener, for anybody who's never heard of him, he's really good too. Nice young Italian young man. Not being partial. Anyway, I am. Anyways, yeah, I'm always looking for knowledge, things I don't know. To help my plants grow, to improve my soul, whatever. But yeah, I need to. I think we all need to be a little bit more laid back. I mean, I hate to say this, but if our soul and air is that bad, and we are trying to fix it, we should, and we are. But if we're at this point, it's like, I hate to say, it's almost like it's too late anyway, so might as well plant that food. I don't know. But then again, to me, well, then I might as well go to the grocery store. But that doesn't taste as good. It's not as fun either. Anyways, I'm rambling now. I'm not sure I even made my point clearly. Yeah, it's like I want to. I'm not. I mean, I'm running to the store all the time to get like, okay, fungicide because I'm seeing this happen, or I've got the Japanese beetle thing go. That's almost over with. I almost got that under control. And the let's see how. Oh, from watching videos. That's how I got that under control. Found the one woman who was at her wit's end. She got out her little cordless vac, and I started with that, and it started to decline. Then I saw, and my gardener put out that video about Senosad. And I used that just a little area once. There's a huge difference. But, I do spend the money on that kind of stuff. I can't do it on every little thing. I plant in the ground because I cannot do, the raised beds due to finances. But on the other hand, I do grow better directly in the ground. I don't know why. Anyways, I'm going to leave you with that. Blessed be, and make it a joyful one.